Hello. I get the bad budget and that's who gets the good one next year. But that's, I guess, the job that I got. I'll take questions later on, not on my red head, please. I know it's poor timing to receive such a hand. But anyway, so we're gonna first start off with the questionnaire that we went through earlier this year. So I just wanted to give some highlights of what was discussed. So first some context, more about 75% lived here for more than 5 years, with nearly 60% over 20 years. So there's some long-standing people that have an interest in this budget, which is great. So these are the age groups. So for the most part, it's more than 50% that are above the age of 55. Please, if you have any questions, you can have this as interactive. And of course, 88.2% are permanent residents, with a couple that are seasonal.
How many people actually participated in?
About 102.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's all local residents, or is that like,
No.
okay,
So there was a couple of seasonals, about 7.8%. So what is that? About seven or eight people. Probably about 8 because there's 102, right? So majority are permanent. There were some comments that were related to seasonal. So this might look a little confusing, but it is a I asked which services were most important to, and I'll explain it in detail. So the furthest left, and you can tell by the trend line here, that's the weighted average line. It is pretty close, but it is dependent on the scoring. So more people thought environmental services, snow removal, and road maintenance was most important. Township, unfortunately at the end, but I didn't reserve it. Still, there's a number of people for these last 3 columns show that they still use the township. It's most important.
ask a question, Jim?
Yes.
Thank you for asking questions for me. Environmental services, what do you mean by that?
So it's water and sewer. Yeah. And then the landfill. So environmental service, water and sewer is most important, followed by snow removal, road maintenance, recreational services came up on top. Landfill, library is very important. You'll see from the next slide that library actually got some pretty good marks. So, any questions? Everyone got an idea of what's going on here? Similarly, starting left to right, library has the current level of service as the best, followed by the landfill, public safety, environmental services, and road services and infrastructure, which we can all understand where that came from. So it's still pretty close. The line is pretty horizontal, but library came out on top with the as the best level of service. So well, with the land
Definitely is.
Yeah. Okay, so which budget area requires the most attention? Well, new infrastructure, of course. So that should be, everyone knows that we need more new infrastructure. Environmental services. So there might have been a mix up between environmental services and new infrastructure. Maybe people got a little bit confused there. It'd be nice if we can parse that even more. Unfortunately, we can't at this point. Is there an echo? Okay, other, so I'll discuss what other is. So sidewalks and streetlights are some of the other items that are there. Community facilities, library. So this is, people are saying that we need to do infrastructure upgrades in the town, which it shouldn't be, right? Are you willing to pay higher in tax levels of service? Now it's even, between yes and no. And then there's an obvious unsure, and then other is obviously, it does say here, yes, with certain percentage, Other comments were we should get adequate services considering the taxes are paid and expensive now and fixed income very hard. So, I mean, I could parse this data and say, there is nearly 65% that are not in disagreement with it, but what a state was. So further on, how important is a township to invest in long-term strategy? So a lot of people think it's very important to invest in long-term strategy. Percent of budget dedicated to capital improvements. If you look at it, I can take an average of that, but it's between, about 20%, I guess, if we throw a thumbtack at that, which is quite high, 20%, but given the previous comments, maybe they're connecting that there needs to be some upgrades done. And this is reflective of how that's going to be done in the population's opinion. Average is about 22.9. So which capital project should be considered for improvements? Again, starting from the left, moving right is the rated average. It's all pretty linear, but underground utilities, UV disinfection, water treatment plant, and then so on and so forth about the several capital projects, electrical lighting. There were some comments I didn't include because there was quite a number of comments, but I can make those available to the public. And of course, there's some comments that I probably would want to repeat. Anyways, so yeah, the first 4 underground, UV disinfection, community recreational center, and electrical street lighting, West Beach walking path. That's 5. How important is the building township reserves? So 95% important. Very few people said it was not important. In your opinion, where is the township taxes? So the majority said that they are too high, followed by they're just right. I mean, I like the guy that I don't have enough information. That's probably an accurate depiction. Way too much, taxes could go up, not sure. So I'd like to point out this is some real data from real, I said I'd provide this data, but I can't provide some information. But this is a list of many communities in Northern Ontario. So I got the average residential property value and times that by the mill rate. It's the average residential property tax, and we are the second cheapest location, and you can probably tell by the populations.
Here's the question, when you talk about the averages, I understand you take an average.
Yes.
Of the complete community, did you break it up between lakeside properties and town properties? Because there's a huge variance between what we pay on the lake. And properties both in town and on the lake.
So for instance, Dryden, they have properties on the lake as well. Sioux Lookout has properties on the lake as well.
I'm not talking about other communities, I'm talking about just Ignace in
So
particular.
there's only so much information I can get. And I was reaching over probably my ask from the people that provided this data to me. That might be something that we can parse out.
Yeah,
it is.
CGIS has it on their community assessment reports, right?
Well, I wouldn't be able to get other townships data, though.
No, but I'm not talking about other people, I don't care about the other county, I care about Ignace, and I just kind of want to know the difference between the lakeside properties and what's in town. That's all. I mean, if you could provide that information, I think that'd be really helpful for people to kind of understand.
Well, in fairness, Aaron, it goes on assessed value.
Yeah.
Yes.
So naturally, the places on the lake are assessed a lot higher than, on other people in town, and that's like everywhere else in Sioux County, you live on the lake, you're paying $12,000 a year taxes, right?
Yeah.
You live in town, you're paying a lot less. So that it's up to impact on their assessed value.
Yeah, it should, the caveat too is that MPAC hasn't done an assessment since 2016, so these are 2016. Using today or 2024 mill rate, so. I mean, it's not completely accurate, but I'm just trying to give an indication of where we are in that, in terms of other townships. Now, I'm not arguing that we should raise our taxes to say, we want to be competitive against other townships, but it is a piece of data that people should be considering here. You know, not only, you know, are we getting a benefit from, NWMO, but I mean, there are other ways to bring economic development to town, right? A lot of towns do put 20% away or 10% away on capital projects. We're not doing that.
Ask questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Again.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is with the mill rate or the assessments that's gonna happen here shortly, right?
Yeah.
Places around town. Even downtown and in the Townhall subdivisions, I mean, they're selling for $200,000, $300,000 now, right? And back in 2016, they're probably assessed at, $80,000, right? So their taxes and the places on the lake, I know the one next door to me is just sold for 300 and something thousand, right? Eventually, when they do the new assessment, everybody's tax is probably gonna double unless we
Lower the mill rate.
lower the mill rate.
And that's 100% gonna happen, right?
Right.
So when they
That's
do,
what we gotta be careful about, right?
yeah, so we get a reassessment early in the year. And then at that time, we'll know when they're doing the assessments. So we'll change the mill rate down, so it adjusts. So that the assessment value times by the mill rate is still that whatever percentage that you.
So you still wanna collect the same amount of taxes, but
Essentially,
reduce the mill rate.
yes,
Is that our goal here? That's the goal?
that is the goal.
Thank you.
What do you
That is
think,
the goal.
Keith?
Thank you.
That is the goal. So, and the only way that the assessment value changes at this time is if somebody's doing renovations to their houses or businesses or whatever. They build a garage, then it gets reassessed.
And if they sell their house.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, yes, it does. Mine went up because of that.
When did that go up?
That went up when I bought the house on 108 Balsam.
That would, what year?
That was 2020.
Yeah, so it would have went up one time because that was the
I
last.
started the dates and they continue on. right?
Well, the assessment value happens on 2016, but they do it in 4 increments, so you don't get a huge jump in.
But it's going up, but that's just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, and somebody called in and we got reassessed at the hotel as well, so I mean, it does happen. Right, so, but they said it's not gonna happen till the end of this year.
So, well, I'm hoping that they do, I mean.
Well, that's what Jeff told me, so.
Oh, okay.
We said the end of.
That'd be great, because I wish you would have done it even the last year, because then I wouldn't have to be looking like a enemy here.
Mhm.
And that's the idea, and that's the idea, MPAC is supposed to do it every 4 years, to do the adjustment. 1/4 of that assessment for every one of those 1 years. So the assessment value increases, we keep the mill rate the same. And I don't look like an enemy, but it hasn't worked out that way. Anyways, food for thought. Are you willing to pay slightly higher taxes? Well, there's a huge to fund improvements. There's a huge amount of people that are saying no. However, there's still 33% that are saying yes and 30% that are unsure. Of course, there's always a caveat. That's a pretty generic question. There's always conditions, obviously, right? Similarly, it's very important. People are thinking that it's important to keep competitive wages for staff. We're gonna get a lot of business coming in the next couple of years, and Greenstone is any indication of what happens. Greenstone lost half to 3/4 of their municipal staff once the mine started up. So, it's unlikely that we can compete, with big businesses like NWMO or any of the construction companies, but this is a consideration that I think about in the coming years. So 90% because I'm gonna twist the data, 90% don't disagree. Willingness to increase taxes more for more competitive to improve retention. Large percentage of the population agree that you should do that, they just don't want to pay for it, apparently is what I'm getting from this. But again, 64% don't disagree. Maximum increase you would accept for the tax rates, which is very interesting. There was one gentleman, it was not me, that said 9%. I want to meet that person. I think that's way off hand.
Wow.
But a majority of the people think that tied to inflation is.
Aaron, is there any way you're making that bigger?
Keith, is there any way we can make that bigger?
No, we didn't send it, that's on there.
So it's in mode.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, can't you just touch the screen and?
Well, it's in presentation.
Didn't hear you.
I'm almost at the end.
Didn't hear you.
And I'm just gonna see. So anybody have any questions?
You're talking about the questionnaire.
Yes. No,
Not that one.
okay. Let's get out of here.
So would you be able to make that presentation available for the public as well as the results of the survey? Can that be posted online so we?
I can, I will probably take out that one slide from MPAC.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have no problem. I have no problem with that.
I don't know why F5 is not working. Is this slow, right? What's going on here? Yikes. Sorry. Alright, is this the one? Okay. Yeah, you must share it.
Helen?
Yeah, you see.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Imagine.
It can be spacey.
Skewing the stats, Helen.
Hey?
You're skewing the stats.
Yeah. Oh, Lauren's on.
It's not what I want. The hell's going on here too?
Man, it goes through the paper one.
I think there's enough,
There you go.
Aaron,
Yeah.
there's also enough budgets there for everyone to have one and can follow along with you.
It's not all in there.
Oh,
No, I-
Oh. Okay.
It's not this.
I think this part is, this next part.
Yeah, so this is.
The numbers are in here. Yes, yeah, I'm thankful. Yeah. Everyone will
I don't work here anymore.
There's no-
Read it home.
It's easier seeing this than that. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, if you wanna follow along for just this one slide and go, this is pretty much a summary of what's going on. Obviously, we're in a year transition, we're moving out of the multi-year funding agreement, moving into a hosting agreement. There's a couple of changes we're making in terms of the accounting, where things are being allocated, one of them is wages. We're moving wages, so if you're performing work, say, in planning, then that work is being billed to planning. If you're doing work for asset management, you're getting billed to asset management. Likewise with public works, which is the landfill, so we can get actual costs to things. Know what the actual costs are. This wasn't done previously, it was sort of just grouped together. likewise, the insurance, so insurance was all billed to administration. I look it up, I forget what it is, 500,000 for insurance, 300,000. Now we divide it up into the multiple divisions. But also we've been doing is we found upon an investigation that many of our infrastructure didn't have water meters, so we started installing water meters at locations so we can measure what that water actually is being used at the arena, for instance, as well. Right, so we can actually get real data, know what the real costs are.
We all got water meters, but bigger users didn't.
Yes. Some staff previously to this one, did install that stuff. And we're in the process of installing that stuff now. Other stuff, so I am proposing, this is just a proposal, next week I'm gonna bring options to council for their selection on what they want. And this, for the purposes of this PowerPoint, I propose a 6% increase, and I'll show you why. Also a 10% increase in wastewater, I'll show you why. That is supposed to be facing a $1.5 million shortfall. This is due to two things. One is there was wage subsidies in the hosting in the multi-year funding agreement that subsidized a lot of staff's wages because we were performing work on behalf of NWO. Now that agreement's done, so they're not subsidizing. There was quite a bit of wages there.
Can I just ask a question about that, since I
Yes.
was involved in that? You got rid of all the people that were actually under NWO, as far as I know, there's two people that were on there, so how did that work out through 2023 or 2024? Did you add it to other positions? Like, I know that some of them were funded 50%. There was another one that was either 50 or 30%. And then the rest there was 5 that were 100%.
Well, I guess to answer your question, I would head on your perspective. Right, there was a number of wages that were a various range, like you said, 50%. 30%, 25%. However, that because they figured, and you would know this because you were working through this, there was some work being done on behalf of NWMO. We would do the work, we'd basically finance their operations, and then they would reimburse us. Right, so that has come to an end. Now, we still have staff that are here. It amounts to about $400,000. So that now is a cost that comes onto the township, right? Now there are, you'll see later that there are additional through the hosting agreement that would write down that cost or write up, depending on whatever.
Could that shortfall be also because people are not paying their taxes and not paying their sewer and not paying their water and not paying the W fees?
So I'm not surprised that you brought that question up because it apparently was on social media recently. So no. So there are obviously in every town, there are people that are not paying stuff. We, the township, are fulfilling our obligations under the bylaws. Anybody that is not paying their water tax or bills after 30 days or 90 days are shut off.
Have you gone to a collection agency or anything for collecting back taxes?
Yeah.
So, back taxes, so the bylaw, and that's why when you saw that, and it's important when you read this stuff that there's context. You can't just look at one piece of information and then fill information into it. So back taxes, they're in the municipal act, that allows you some time, right, to catch up. So it's 2 years. So that's the reason why there's 500,000, because there's a number of people that are banking and not paying until they have to. There are some that are paying year to year, but there's some people that are only paying their taxes from 2 years ago. So it looks like we have a large accounts receivable, but that's just because we're following the laws as they're written. So it should also be said, one second, it also should be said is we're charging a large finance charge for people that are paying those. So when it's probably around 15 to 18% APR. So actually, we're earning more money as a result of people not paying. Their
$42,000, right?
So what you're saying there, Aaron, is that there isn't $800,000 of people in the tax arrears, right? And like that.
There are, like, there's some big,
What I'm saying, that there's not $800,000.
no, it,
Of people that we're gonna take their homes and property.
no,
No.
no. No, it's not representative of what's going on, even the water bill. Like, the water bill is just for that day, there's people that are like 30 days behind, right? That is not people that are already shut off, those are people that is accounts receivable of that date.
2 years to pay.
Right, so when I first got here. When I first got here, there was 41 people that hadn't paid. Right, now there's only 4.
So it's
So,
good to know. I wanna make sure that you guys are collecting your money.
yes,
Why should I pay extra taxes or even pay my water or sewer if other people are not? And it's okay.
it's not okay. It's not okay, I don't, I would suggest not putting it, this. I will, like, I told accounting. Right, if you're not paying your water, you're not paying your taxes, I don't care if it's me or any counselor, we're gonna treat everyone the same. If you're not paying your bills, we're gonna enforce the bylaws and the laws that we're governed by. Everyone equally.
And that counts for the dumping fees as well, right?
Yes, if we find ways that we can fine you for stuff that for dumping fees, for instance, then yes.
I guess I'm talking companies, probably companies if they're still owing, I don't know.
So there are companies that are still owing.
Yeah.
There's only so much we do, and we're changing the processes, so. We're not left, maybe if unless you have a good rapport or relationship with the township. We'll allow you to run monthly bills, if not, then you're gonna pay upfront. That's some of the stuff that we're implementing or something.
I know that you have to go on, I just have one really quick question about the penalties on taxes. So you budgeted last year, you had $42,000, so I'm assuming that's revenue coming into the township, if people like me are late all the time. So, with the budget in 2025, I think because it's close by the end of the year, so, you maybe budgeted 30,000, about 31,000, but you didn't have anything in actuals for 2024. Is there a reason for that? Is that just, was it moved somewhere else, or?
I would have to look at, so you're talking about,
It's in your, yeah, it's in the, just the taxation levies and throwing taxes. It says interest and penalties on taxes. So in budget 2024.
so that should be allocated, that's an allocation problem that we got to address.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one of some of the things, it's just. It's somewhere else in the budget, it's just not allocated, so we're
Okay.
tracking it. And I should also mention, sorry, I should also mention that our new software that we're moving to a more enterprise system. It's gonna have better checks and balances for something.
Just a very simple question.
Yeah.
Since some of the properties that haven't had water meters are now within the municipality are now getting them,
Yes,
will that stabilize at least our water charges and not, what will that do?
so the water charges, so I mean. There's a number of factors associated with this, but I think the biggest factor is that we have a water plant and a wastewater plant that are. At a lower capacity than running optimally, so we have a small population. Right, running a big facility, right, and there's a lot of fixed charge, like, no matter what, if that plant is pumping out 25% capacity. Or 80% capacity, it's gonna have the same employees, it's still gonna have the same number of trucks, it's gonna have the same amount of, so there's a lot of fixed costs that are being downloaded on a smaller population. Right, so when we start. Bringing in more people are gonna be, you're gonna spread that fixed cost over more people. And you're gonna see, even though you're gonna see the water bill goes up, because that's just the way the world works, that everything gets more expensive. But the cost per person is gonna go down.
I have a question here, I don't know if I misunderstood. But when you were talking about the water meters that are not installed, you're
Yes.
talking about township buildings.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what she's doing, so.
That's what you meant? Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
there's just township buildings that have been water meters.
Yeah.
that Haven't been installed.
I guess, just to rationalize, I can't rationalize why. It's probably because we're like, you wouldn't really pay, like the township wouldn't really pay for its own water, right? It's sort of like a downward cost because it's gonna come out of the tax base anyways, and we're just paying ourselves, right? So it's sort of like this.
But there might be a leak or something somewhere and they were wasting water, so
I
that
was just
doesn't
gonna
mean.
say that,
Well, I mean, having.
there could be.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is like, to identify, there was a note saying that we have 30% leak, there's no way of, that's a made up number. There's no way, I don't know that number, right? That's why we're starting to try to figure this out, is like, first we gotta get data where we are now, right? Before we can start going, and we also have plans on, we're gonna start figuring out how to do this. Unfortunately, like most of the time, you're gonna see the water bubbling up, and we saw that on Pine Street, we saw the water start bubbling up, and we got to it as quick as we can. Right, unfortunately, we're not seeing these big breaks where massive amounts of water, so the only way to do that is to just start digging holes. Right, which obviously is hugely expensive, probably more expensive than just wasting water. Or there's technology that you can actually send down the water pipe and it does sounding, right? It uses like a dolphin or a submarine, and it can tell what the thickness of the walls are. And then we can identify locations that way. But unfortunately, if the service lines that come to each individual house, that can go down that service line. So if we send I'm calling it a peg, sort of like a peg or a pipeline. We can send it down the main trunks. But if it's the service lines that are leaking, I mean, it's,
I'm talking about township buildings, like in your township buildings, if you got a toilet running, you're wasting water, right? You don't even know it because you don't have a meter on it.
well, we
That
have,
kind of things, I'm not talking about
I
service for
know,
my house.
well, I know,
Really?
I know for a fact that we're pretty careful about the washrooms in the administration office. It has a tendency of running, and we flip the lever. Taking the time to replace the guts out of it is something that we gotta definitely do. We got a number of things we're trying to get to, but definitely, this is one of my focuses. I hate the fact that, so I even did some, calculations. So I found out through reports what Sioux Lookout, for instance, they use the same service provider, they have a certain population, and if you have a population, the amount of water they use, then you can figure out how much water is being used per person. Right, and we are using more water per person than so I think there are leaks. I think they're underground. I think there's many leaks that are not identifiable. And we just have to start making decisions on trying to find out where we should start replacing infrastructure.
So where are you
Yeah.
starting in that? You're talking about plans, but where are we going?
Well,
Like,
We
you
need,
can talk about it for years and nothing gets done.
well, I mean, everything costs money, right?
Yeah.
Where's this
Well,
money?
you got all the money from nuclear,
What is the
let's use
cost
some of
of
that
the-
money and fix our
You should have.
streets.
I'm supposed to be getting quotes pretty soon here.
Aaron, is there a way in terms of like how hydro does it and other like gas that you can actually see your daily usage on, like, I know that when I identified a problem in one of the houses that I had, it was a leak coming from the township and not our part, but it was causing our bill to be really high. And is there like a way that they can, when they're doing it, like you can ask for 90-day read and they give you the 90-day read and stuff like that? Is there a way that an actual resident can do that with software upgrades is something to think about? Like, cause I know hydro, you can go in, you can see your daily uses like every day, right? You can go by hour, by minute. And the reason I say that, cause I'm concerned, because I know there was some talk about changing the billing to like 3 months back again, and the reason that they went back to every month is because people were experiencing problems. So by the time you get a 3-month bill,
Yeah.
if you didn't know you got a leak, you get a $900 bill in the mail. Like, and you got, I mean, the township's been really great about those kind of forgivenesses and stuff like that, but it becomes a problem, right?
Here's the thing, though, here's the thing. So if you're getting a water bill, it's high. it's going through your meter inside your house. So if there's a leak, it's inside your house and the township's not responsible for it.
Yeah,
Right, so, we try to do our best to,
unless you have a faulty meter,
so, I
right,
mean,
that's what happened, I had a faulty meter, the meter was faulty, it was obvious, like we shut the water off from the main and it still was registering.
so. I
That was
mean-
like, that was years ago, it doesn't matter, it's just a system, so it's, yeah.
So, I mean, there is new technology out there. I mean, it depends on what the township wants to do, right? So there's meters now that do sounding itself, so you can have all these meters throughout the whole house that do sounding, and what it can do is triangulate where leaks are. But again, new technology costs a lot of money. That's a huge investment to replace all our meters. I think for the most part, I think we can make sound judgments on locating some of this and then just put a plan together on replacing this thing. But again, if I had $50 million right now, I would probably replace every line, but that's just something that
We
we
could have
could.
done it.
We could have gone.
Yeah. I'm just gonna throw it.
Well, I mean, we're not gonna get into the, what,
No.
Those things agreement.
yeah, well, I don't think that they would do that. Why would they do that, right?
Well.
I mean, there's,
Karen, what we do gotta do chummy change.
well, I mean, they're a different, governing system. Right,
What is the
it's
life,
true, you can't own houses there, right?
what's the lifespan of the meters, you know?
I
have
don't
now.
know. I don't know, I can check up on that. I'll
We've
get-
had them about 8 years.
So the way that they're designed, and I've spoken with, and anybody that wants to check on their meters, they can. There is a cost associated, so the cost, right? If you wanna test your meter and it comes back that it's working correctly, then you would have to pay for that test.
I think what I understand Jeff is saying is that it'd be better to catch it in a month's time and not 3 months' time
Yeah.
for the bill.
Yeah, for the most,
Yeah.
there's been, like, there's been a couple of times that there's been breaks, and I don't wanna identify whom,
No.
but there was an unoccupied place.
Mhm.
And we called them and said, you have a break, you're using 150 meters per month. And they would, go there and
Okay,
make those repairs.
so then if our employees see that, then they're gonna make note of it and do something about it, okay.
We have meters and nobody has come to check to see if they actually work. Like, there's nobody that has come to do a quality check on those meters, like they do in cities, they do come into the city, but from the city, they come in and they make sure that your equipment is working. And that's what work.
So I've spoken with Neptune, who supplies, and they do testing for they don't only provide us meters, they provide meters everywhere, and it's the same standard everywhere.
Mhm.
If you want your meter tested, you let us know, we can send in your meter, but if it comes back that is accurate, which they tell me is 99.99 to infinity times, that's the way it's built. Because you can't, the way the water goes through, the spinning mechanism inside would have to go faster than the water would allow it to, which defies all laws of physics.
But you're saying
Right,
we
so-
have to pay for that check.
If it's found that it is not working properly,
Yeah.
then obviously we would first replace the meter, and second, figure out when this actually happened and make a rebate.
So, yeah, they've been good, and I just wanna say that, but it's also the way that the meters are installed, they're installed in crawl spaces that collect a lot of humidity. And that really damages the kind of and that's what the Neptune guy told me, he said,
That's,
it had never been installed in this area, and I said, well, I didn't install, so.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like, how am I supposed to know that, right? So
Yeah,
I'm just
man.
saying that those, that's just a, yeah.
I think that is something.
So it should be a pretty simple solution, or can't we just get the water data from our plant here, how much we burnt last year, the year before,
Yes.
the years before that? And to see if there's an increase, like a large increase of usage.
So there has been a large
There has
increase,
been.
yeah, so we're about 209,000. 209,000 cubic meters, and it's in the final report.
So the last time, I think, when we were a council years ago, he brought in that company that, like you said, threw a peg through the lines
Yeah.
and find out where the breaks were.
Yeah.
so we can find out what that's gonna cost to get it done.
Yeah, and I've reached out
Where-
to our service
Yeah.
provider several
Council
times.
actually said that they want to do
Still
that.
waiting, it's getting to the point where I'm just gonna get it done myself.
So we're on.
Yeah.
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 Unfortunately, that's at the disposal of other people. It'd be nice if I can get it done myself, but
Yeah.
it's coming. Trust me, I wanna resolve this is my.
Yeah.
The flushing of the lines though, that's an issue too, cause that uses up a lot of water. And is there any? And I know your whole infrastructure needs to be done, but isn't there any way that you can look at the certain spots that are always being flushed? To see if you can fix something right there before, so you don't have to flush it.
Yeah, that's definitely, so there are some key locations that we have identified.
Yeah.
That we want to address, so I, like, for the most.
And not waiting for the big plan of getting them all done. Like the whole infrastructure and the whole community, because we know it all has to be done.
Yeah, there's some problematic areas, like, what is it, Willow, or that one location that always freezes.
Lake Street. Lake Street.
Yeah, is it Lake Street?
Lake Street too.
I know there,
They flush
yeah,
every week,
yeah, I mean, they're.
and it's because of the cement being in the room.
Well, I think there's a different reason, I think it's a really slow, slope. It's not an adequate slope to actually remove debris from the line, you need about 2% in order for the water to remove it, if it's a lower slope than the water, it's gonna push it. Anyways, I have a couple more slides, I mean, I can get through, maybe some of these questions will be addressed. Of course, inflation year after year, you hear like, oh, box office smash, blah, 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 well, you hear that because things get more expensive year after year, right? So inflation is a continuous problem, till forever. And then, we do have some, budgets, contributions to reserves, in accordance to bylaws that we've established.
Excuse me, that you forgot that one thing about the two reasons why we're facing the 1.5 shortfall.
So it's the wage subsidies,
No, yeah, the second
the
one. I can't
OPMF,
remember.
so
Yes.
that's the other one, so we're working towards, finishing our FIRs
So if you finished every year of your budgets, I mean, not your budget, sorry, your
audits.
audits, then we'll get $4 million
Well,
or roughly.
Yeah. So apparently,
What are we gonna do with them?
Well, the 1.5 that we're pulling out because of this will
Yeah.
be to replace that.
But you're gonna get more than that. So is there
Well-
plans on, aren't we supposed to get like $1 million every year? I don't know. No, not one time.
It's 900 and some.
Yeah,
900 something.
So we're waiting, right now, we're waiting on 2024 and then subsequently 2025 to be released. And we're almost done the 2021 audit.
And that's the bad.
And that's been
That's
the
the bad.
biggest one, is trying to get caught up from when things were not done during COVID.
but is it gonna be quicker now?
Apparently, 2022 and 2023, the auditors have said will go a lot faster than 2021.
But
That's-
2021 is how many years ago?
I know.
You know,
5
like,
years
I
ago.
don't want it to be that.
Well, that's
far.
all, that's what kind of mess they're in. That's
Yeah.
kind of mess they're in.
We.
I know, but we hired somebody
They
to
have-
fix it, we didn't do it.
They haven't withheld, the government hasn't withheld the funds for that many years, so it's only 2024 and this year's that.
Yeah,
So is that right?
we've
2%?
recently,
Why
we've
is
recently.
that?
So it's not-
Just shy of 2 million, so 1.8.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So we are working, this is our number one goal, is to get those done, and there are
This is the-
other municipalities, I know, thank you for that, that's a really interesting link that was sent. But there are, there's a number of northern communities, I've talked to the CAOs, a couple, they're working towards getting them done, so we're not the only one.
no, but I don't care. Oh, my God. Goes back into the reserve once you get your own.
Yes,
Done.
yes. Yes. And like next year too, you'll notice too, and I should just get this out of the air here, but when you look at the hosting, agreement, we get $4 million once the IPD is submitted to the agencies having jurisdiction. So that's probably gonna be November at the earliest. So I didn't put it in this budget because first, it's late in the year, and B, there are delays in these kind of things sometimes. So next year, we're gonna get not only that $4 million, but we're gonna get the 4.5 for infrastructure and probably these $2 million, $3 million for the OPM. So we're gonna have that's why I was joking, I get the shit job, pardon my English. And I'm gonna hand over the budget to my colleague here, and she's gonna look like the hero.
So then the 6% tax increase, will it be taken off? Taxes never go down.
Well,
Once we get- So that our community can reap the benefits of this hosting agreement, which they haven't done yet.
so no matter what, it's gonna be benefiting, right? So we have a lot of infrastructure upgrades happening, so.
That's not in people's pockets. That's where it hurts the most, people's
So
pockets.
the reason why we have these issues, in my opinion, is because we've been living off of somebody else's paycheck. Right, and we gotta stop doing that, because there's a time, there's an exit clause, there's an exit clause, right? If this DGR doesn't go forward, right, we get $4 million and they say, have a nice day, and then what
That's
happens?
Forever, right. That's
And then what
what-
happens then? Now we're hooped, now we're really in the hole, right?
Okay, I understand all that, Aaron,
Yeah.
but people need to feel some relief. People have not, and we've got a huge senior population, and they have not gotten a thank you for going through this 12-year process or this 10-year process. They need to feel something, and to get a 6% tax increase on people is huge,
Mhm.
especially on some of our seniors that live alone. That's
Well,
a heavy hit.
I know, but there was no increase last year as well, right?
Where it's semantics.
I mean, it's gotta go up every year.
Yeah, I have a
Sorry.
comment, I have a comment to that, I hear you. But I would like to say how our community has benefited is the new fire truck, the new fire rescue truck, new trucks, new equipment down Public
And
Works.
that's not in people's pockets.
But
that's what it
but
is.
you know what, in turn, it is, because you're not getting a tax increase to pay for those things.
Okay.
Right?
And a lot of those things were bought because of the nuclear money too.
Yeah, that's right.
We would not, so they wouldn't have had a tax,
Absolutely.
so they wouldn't have had a tax increase because we wouldn't have bought them because we couldn't afford them.
Yep,
So
That-
that
see-
indirectly is not coming out, that is not giving people stuff back.
No, I'm not.
But it is, but it is.
So.
You just gotta think about it a different way.
A
right?
lot of even what's even in the hosting agreement, you really need to get to the budget because it's already getting late. So
Yeah.
it's like, I see a lot of things in the hosting agreement that doesn't benefit the community. It benefits the corporation.
Yeah.
If you look at the hosting, it's all about like, look at the travel, I sent you an email with that all in there saying, how does this benefit the community?
So if we needed a fire truck, how would we have a fire
I'm
truck?
not saying fire truck, I'm
Otherwise,
saying what's in your budget right
so
now.
otherwise, we would just have to increase taxes to get these items that we're getting, so.
Or you can
We're
apply
not-
for
you're not-
funding, which you can't because you don't have your horizon in
Yeah.
work. Right, so it's.
But we don't need, the township doesn't need our taxes in place to tax, because we're in a business of collecting taxes and providing services. Right, so again, the reason why this infrastructure is falling apart is because nobody's been investing in it. Right? So, like,
Going on because we've had increases and we've had smaller tax base. But with the NWMO, Aaron, this all could have been addressed in the hosting agreement. It absolutely could have.
it is.
We could. No, more than,
More.
it is this much. It
So
is-
our, and I don't wanna get into an argument here, right, but our township, our town limits is about 1 kilometer that way.
Yes.
And it doesn't land, so the fact that we got anything, I think we should be extremely grateful. That's my personal opinion. Because it has nothing
If
to
you weren't here for the last 12 years, going over this whole process, and we went to every meeting, our town was very much invested in it. That's not a press.
So,
That's,
okay, I'm gonna
okay,
move.
let's carry
Yeah,
on.
let's carry on.
Give us a-
We can talk to.
Can I just say something briefly?
Sure.
As a senior in this community supported that project over 76%. And most of the people that I'm talking to, and I talk to a lot, I don't go out anymore, but everybody visits. Feeling we did a lot of work, and what did we get for that? Our raise in our waters. I mean, you need to give this community something so they feel some gratitude for what we went through, what we attended, how we fought for this. We had a huge percentage of people and we feel that we've been discarded over. What did we get? We got a hike in some of our.
6% tax rate.
But I agree though, I mean, we did get benefit through
Yeah, no,
different
yes.
equipment and whatnot.
Yeah.
But some of those priorities have been skewed a little bit as well, right? Because we were supposed to get a beach pavilion, never happened,
Yeah.
right? And that was a huge need for the community. We're still gonna get recreation upgrades, I know that, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's been slated, you know, in terms of it. Glad to see infrastructure being taken care of, that John Day, I think there still needs some more planning, with the Davy Lake, repaving, you know, in terms of working with the school, I already, and, yeah, thank you. But I think these things are really, I think it's a start.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't mean that, you know, that we can't continue, especially using some of that funds from NWMO to complement through grant money and everything as they go forward. Once they get all straightened out, hopefully they'll be able to complement and get more funding and use the NWMO money as leverage. So we get bigger and better, you know, development as you kind of move forward. It's a start, but I agree, Cindy, it's like, nobody's seeing the benefits in their day-to-day when they have to get their, when they get their pay, when they get their bills and
And those are
whatnot.
what seniors live by,
Yeah.
day to day. And these increases are just killing some of them. It's
And
just,
this is gonna
it's
be an
not
elected
fair.
issue,
It's
right?
not fair to have gone through, like Don said, for the past 12 years, going to all the information sessions, learning about the project, going to everything that was put on, and everyone, it was always, we're gonna see, it's gonna be such a better Ignace, everything's gonna be such a better Ignace, we're gonna have all these upgrades, and when we were in Arioki, they had the lowest tax rate and the most services of any town in Finland. The lady said it to us at the town office, and that's what we came back and told people, we're not seeing that, Ignace. That's not what we got.
We have the lowest tax rate in northwestern Ontario. I just had a presentation on
But
that.
they don't have the TGR. We do.
Well, actually, well, food does, but anyways, I'm gonna move forward. So the financial structure, is gonna, you know, make some changes. So a lot of the wages were moved from public works into roadways and landfills as those costs are structured in each one of those divisions. Similarly, the insurance expenditures, there was a lot of it was just being put into administration. And now is being allocated to every one of those divisions to get the actual costs. And of course, we're installing water meters on municipal buildings that wasn't done before, so we can get accurate measurements. And once we have accurate measurements, then we can actually determine what that real loss is on our water. So as you can see, in 2016 was the last assessment value. It takes 4 years to culminate, because it increases a quarter of that assessment value per year, making it 2020. So the blue line represents the increase in inflation. That's the CPI, it's not actual. That's one of the measures indicated to measure how much things get more expensive year after year. And the orange line is the tax levy increases. Obviously, up until 2023, we've been sort of keeping up to pace. However, 2024, we missed because we just didn't have time to make those data-driven decision-making. Now that we're in a place where we can actually see what's going on, I'm proposing a 6% increase. I don't make the decisions. I'm on next week. Council can make that decision. I'm here to represent the township and make sure that it's a long-lasting for hundreds of years that it's set up, not just for 5 years. Right, so some of the increases that we're seeing, OPP cost increases, wastewater, water, health services. However, I'm gonna check up on that number because it might be inaccurate. And of course, we're always seeing insurance and contracted services going up.
And if I can add one thing to that last slide, I was commenting to Aaron earlier today that OPP costs, he's got on there that they've gone up 17%. They went up 17% over last year's budget, but over actual, it's 33.1%. So those are costs that are out of our control. That's the new billing model for OPP. So it's just something that we need to pay.
It has to.
If crime stays down, we'll save a little bit of money.
So
Are we
actually,
also getting money back from them?
So-
Because they are, for the charges and that, doesn't that money come back into the community?
No.
Money
If
goes
it's in
out.
the,
so,
No, but
No, we get, yeah, we actually get money.
Not anywhere near.
No,
It just
Jody.
drops.
so the way it works is if you have much more crime and way more calls, the cost actually goes down. So there are other areas, so we're about mediocre, and we are paying the fourth highest police costs in Ontario. And this council does go to meet with the ministers and try to have those conversations about equity in payments, about not increasing police costs. And we do it every time we leave this community to go to an event. We talk to the Solicitor General every chance we get. We are working with the Kenora District municipal group to present multi-minister meeting. And one of the biggest concerns is the cost of policing. And Sioux Lookout,
on the new model.
Kenora, Dryden, and
Red Lake.
Ignace, Red Lake,
as well.
they're of the top 10 communities in Ontario, we are 5 of them.
Yeah.
So there's something wrong with the billing for OPP. And we are bringing it to their attention. Also, health services, maybe you all knew this coming in. I had to ask, what health services are we paying for? So this is the KDSB and long-term care. Long-term care went up a huge amount to all municipalities this year. And with the Kenora District Service Board, we are trying with the other one I'm on.
Land ambulance?
No,
No.
Kenora District Municipal Association. We are trying to work with the ministers to get a portion of that paid for by the unorganized population. So they contribute right now 0% into long-term care, but have equal access to the service that everyone else in the municipality has. So there's some discrepancy and unfairness in that cost raise as well.
I would suggest also maybe contacting the township of Pickle Lake. They have a regional training center up there for OPP and they are under a special model.
Because
that
they-
might be something that might be interested in.
No, they have the highest rate of calls, which gives them a discount.
Yeah, but they also.
I did talk to them.
Yeah, but
They're on our
there's
board.
But there's other things that they also get benefit from in terms of their housing and everything. So I was looking for that, and ask them what that model is, because that's something that might be, because I know that the township gets a lot of funding, like, I mean, they do pay a lot, but they also get a lot of funding through additional avenues, like in terms of the staff housing and there's all sorts of different
Yeah,
things that you can look.
They're on the
into.
board I sit on as well, Jeff.
Okay,
And their biggest cost savings is because of the rate of calls they have.
yeah, well, they actually went back, they got billed, they got billed, but they went back and said, so I'm just saying, maybe talk to them
Yeah.
and see what they said. Because it's just worth the conversation.
No,
right?
they sit on the
So-
same 2 boards that I do that are working with this. I'm
Yeah.
quite aware.
He's on.
No, it's a different board than that.
Aaron,
Yeah.
6% increase, how many dollars revenues that been bringing?
100,000, 150,000.
So we're gonna have to find $150,000 someplace.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at, 6%, to balance the budget, we need $150,000, is that what you said?
No. Well, to balance, we're 101.5 million.
No, I'm talking about the increase to 6%.
So I mean, I'm gonna bring it forward and you guys would make the decision. I'm gonna strongly suggest that we need to continue up with the pace of CPI, but I mean, you guys are gonna make that decision.
And CPI is 2.4%.
Yeah, but we missed last year. You can see from the thing, we should have raised it last year and I didn't have the data. I mean, Sioux Lookout raised it 6% last year. We didn't do anything, right? So, but I mean, I'll bring it forward. You guys make the decision. We'll follow through with whatever you guys wanna do.
And there's also other things I didn't see explored in this budget. The tourism monies that could go to recreation directly?
Embrace me.
You motels? There's a fee, it goes,
So, yeah, so there are a number that I was talking with somebody, so. As we like, same with landfill, so I think I just wanted to make the most simple, I know there is 2 increases in here. But I think moving, like, I'm gonna introduce, maybe increases to landfill, see where the appetite is for that. Recreation, right, see where the appetite for that is, so piece by piece, I think it's a lot more easier to manage and control the variables. Cause if I introduce all these with, landfill, crossroads, all the amount of choices that would be there would be unmanageable. So I think I wanted to keep it clean, and then once we get this where we want to go, then we can start rating down our costs with some of the other changes that we gotta do. Planning is another one. There's some of our cost with planning is
So are we gonna be looking at services here again?
services or
Well, I mean, are we gonna be looking at increasing services?
well, that's the question. You mean in terms of what the township is providing as services or,
Well, no, increasing fees.
well, yeah,
I mean, are we gonna be looking at ice rentals? Are we gonna be
yes.
looking at hall rentals? Are we gonna be looking at all that kind of,
Yeah.
bowling alley, the golf course and all that?
Yes,
And then we're gonna be comparable to everybody else.
yes, that's my goal. That's my goal. I wanna, like, we do have, that 1.5, which is gonna be reimbursed. I wanna break down some of those costs with making, fixing up our costing list for planning, for recreation, for, some of the groups for rentals that we have. Landfill, determine what we should start putting a reserve away for that, because technically we're supposed to. And that was one of the things that was mentioned in when we gave our last audit, was one of the requirements is to have a full asset management strategy in place for decommissioning our landfill.
And what I'd also like to see in this budget here too is money put away for to bring in somebody to look at the operation of the township, right? To see where we need our manpower, where we're accessing our manpower.
Times do that, that's been done already.
Aaron, was there been any thought between council and administration to kind of look at like possible, because when Jody was mentioning about tourism, I'm just curious if there's some discussion about introducing a municipal accommodation tax. A lot of municipalities have been doing that, Dryden's to Lookout has it.
that is the word that I was looking for when I was trying to
Yeah,
jumble that out.
there
Thank
are
you,
things
Jeff.
added to, like, I mean, it's something that the local motels and everything, they add that tax on, it doesn't cost them a cent.
No, and it goes
And
directly
actually
to
the-
recreation.
Right, and it can range anywhere between 2 to 6%, and that 2 to 6%, the money that's collected.
Yep.
Goes into like, it goes into whatever, like the reserve, and that money is used for tourism, marketing, it can be shared with the IBA is really interested in that, because that could help them through marketing and business development and whatnot. And also with the community improvement plan that has been largely ignored for the last 4 years, that they have adopted in the council 2018. That they adopted, and it has been, I think, 2 people who've used it since that time, businesses, and I've inquired about it, they said it's a dead program, which is really unfortunate, because that's the type of programming that we need to get investment ready. Yeah, so that money could go towards something like that, right, in terms of helping businesses improve their facade, or giving tax, that's where your surplus properties, where you're allowed to kind of go below assessment value, that's part of that program.
I think that's a
Right.
good model. Maybe we'll look at that.
And I think it should use it, because I mean, it's something that I think it's revenue that is readily available. It's actually paid by people that are coming into the
And
community.
not the
Because they
ratepayers.
come, right, it's not the ratepayers, so the ratepayers don't pay for it, but it's people that come in, so people that come to our hotel and they go down to the beach and you're using the beach equipment. They should be paying through that, right? So it's one of those kind of things that,
That's already been brought up, so 6 months ago.
I brought it up 3 years ago and it was ignored, so. Yeah.
No, yeah, I remember, and I remember Sioux Lookout had one for B&Bs, because they were having a B&B problem, because everyone was, no rentals, a lot of B&Bs.
Yes.
So it would decentralizing them away from those to get more rentals back in place. We don't have that problem, but that's definitely.
And I largely see work trucks parked outside of hotels, so you're not even charging a real tourist, it's more likely big companies
Yeah.
that won't even notice that small increase.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, we certainly don't wanna get too high where we're pushing people away.
I don't think that's.
There are so many examples, you can go online and look and just type in municipal accommodation tax and they have bylaws and everything right there. You don't even have to rewrite them, you just have to copy them and adopt it.
Good idea. So, yeah, you know. We're generating costs of 10.9. Tax reported, that includes provincial. Now, I mean, the tax levy for properties here, tax levy provincial, posting is 3.21. Rate support is 1.93, this is water, you know. Water, wastewater, landfill, recreation. Reserve support is 0.61, now, $1 million of that is for OPMF, so that money is gonna be used to make these maintenance type repairs. We've already started, this is the hydrants, this is the, you know, the wall membranes, this is, you know, a number of the things that we're gonna be doing soon. That gets reimbursed, so that money's gonna get reimbursed. Even though we're only seeing a 6%, if it happens, only 3% is gonna be realized, and sewage is, I'm proposing 10% because it's just. The costs way exceed what the actual cost during that plant are. Now, it is quite an increase, but again, so here's a breakdown of, you know, where those cost structures are coming from, hopefully it's coming from reserves and taxation, posting support.
So that's, if 6% is only for taxes, then you're gonna increase the water and sewer? That means.
Not the water, this is sewer.
This is sewer, so you're gonna increase 6% taxes and how much in sewer?
10%.
10%.
Maybe, I mean, it's not a.
No, I know, but you're presenting that to council.
Yes.
Anything else that we should know about? Like, oh yeah, the dump fees, you're increasing that too now? Is that an increase as well?
I'm gonna
You're
propose that,
proposing?
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
That's the budget, right? That's part of.
not part of this budget, we're gonna do it incrementally.
But it's still this year's budget, or is it 2025, right? You're still
Well, the
gonna charge
budget,
us
the
more.
budget is what you see here,
Yeah,
and then we're gonna, further down the line, we're gonna introduce.
not the same one, not the same one.
Well, I mean, costs go up everywhere, right? We have to pay,
But everywhere doesn't have the hosting agreement, everywhere didn't get money from the NWO, that is the point, this community needs a break. They got put into this, they worked it for 12 years, and they got, pardon my French, shit on. Right? Yep.
Okay.
That's a very general consensus of the community right now. And I know you're the messenger and you're following your numbers, but it feels crappy.
I mean.
You're saying.
We can keep the, like, it depends, right? We can keep the taxes the way they are, and we just have to increase taxes to pay for the infrastructure.
Or use some allocate some of the NWO money.
But there's only so much of it.
Yeah, well, what do you do? Start somewhere small, start somewhere small. Just give us a little.
So can I just make a point? That without the NWMO money that was fought for and worked for so long, for 12 years. Our taxes would have went up about 40%. And they haven't, because of the NWMO money is offsetting. So.
That's the benefit.
Aaron, can you do us a favor here? Can you bring comparisons to other communities, what they pay for garbage, right? So what they pay for water fees, what they pay for sewer fees, and for, like, I know, can you bring that comparisons so we can stay comparable to everybody else? Yep. Right? Yep. And then, you know, we can compare it to anybody else, and this way we can stop the argument of, you know, it's. Cause I know we're a lot cheaper than anybody else when it comes to services. Service, like, you know, the bowling alley is paying $200 a month for the rental, the You know, that's
You
incredible.
can't,
Interesting.
yeah. They don't have the NWMO. They didn't have the promise that we had, the feeling that we had, the hope that we
But
had.
where were you guys 8 months ago when we were negotiating that?
We weren't allowed it.
Either was, either was I. Either
And
was
that
I.
is, that's a sad situation, that council was in on the
Well, either was I.
Yay, Andrew, I'm just saying, oh my goodness, anyway, don't even say that, that you weren't involved in the hosting agreement. That municipality, that's a pretty sad state of affairs.
True.
So we did win the hosting agreement, right?
You won it, you negotiated an
No,
agreement.
they want it, and I'm just gonna step in, Cindy, and
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying, and certainly I understood what, Jan was saying about the 40% increase. But also be, clear that, yes, they did subsidize, but when they first started 12 years ago, it was only like minuscule money, right? It gradually went up as we went along. In 2020 is when they actually signed the multi-year agreement for four, actually it was 3 years at that time, and then they extended it for the 4th year. And so, but we were able to do it in those 2 years. We also increased that hosting budget from 1.2 million to 1.9, right? Through, because we did a lot of studying and we had a lot of strategies and youth engagement. Study was done, so you hired a youth engagement coordinator. I know that was the worst kind of, to talk about that right now, but that's why you had these positions, because they were certainly qualified based on strategy. Now we have a hosting agreement, which should change everything. So whether to me, the 40% is a viewpoint, because it was something that kind of went as we went through. Yes, we got benefit. I absolutely agree. The majority of that benefit, though, came from subsidized salaries and whatnot. You go back and you look, and we had community well-being funds of 300,000 every year that went to the community, right? But it was, again, where did it go? Like, I mean, in terms of that, because we haven't seen reporting on that. I haven't seen reporting since I did one in 2022. There's been no reports from 2023 to present in terms of where NWMO funds went.
Yeah.
And that's a question the community members are asking them. So I think that maybe there might have to be some kind of community call or something where you guys can actually just present it out and just say, hey, this is, or do a presentation to council. And just say, this is how the community benefited from NWMO through the multi-year agreements from 2020 to 2025 or 2024. And now we're in the hosting agreement part. I just think it's more transparency, and I think that's really important now, because there's a lot of rumblings in the community right now. I'm telling you, I hear it every day. So.
Thank you.
Well. Just to add a little more to that. And I know some people think that they are not benefiting from the NWMO, but the whole plan of the NWMO to get to, I've only been here for 5 years, but I've seen it where the monies that NWMO provided or inserted into the township to keep the infrastructure or buy more equipment, et cetera, to keep us afloat, keep the town afloat, has benefited the town, and as a result of that, I do believe there was a couple of years where taxes were not increased or water prices increased, et cetera, et cetera. That's the benefit. The other side of the coin, the long-term benefit for the township will be once they start their actual construction of the DGR and the town starts to expand, we have a population growth, we will have infrastructure, we will have tourism. All that money that's coming into the town through population growth, through the companies, and will come back to lower taxes. Or at least stabilize the tax program. And there won't be a burden on the current population to pay for things. And so the monies that come through the hosting agreement are set up to assist us or assist this town. Not me or not us particular, but assist the town for 10, 15 years when we have to regenerate a new water plant, when we have to build another, not us, but for some reason have another subdivision or redo the airport. All that money that's our backbone money. That's the money that we're gonna be we're gonna invest and get a percentage back, which will help the taxpayer down the road.
But I also think the community needs to realize, I'm gonna just add to that, is that there's gonna be a center of expertise that's gonna be built. And that is gonna generate a lot of activity for the community, and you'll start seeing direct benefit
That's right.
from that.
Yeah.
Right, and I understand what you're saying about that, but you need to kind of, you know, listen to what the constituents are saying, and they're saying, well, we don't see that benefit now. Because they're seeing like other, you know, other communities seeing direct benefit, you know, from that. I get it's a whole different process. So maybe couch it in a way to say that, okay, we're gonna be investing in all this infrastructure, we're doing all this equipment, it's gonna run better and operate better, so guess what? Your taxes might go down because it doesn't cost as much to run or operate, you don't need to have so much manpower to operate these things, but I think it's just a matter of messaging and communications. You guys have a communications person, get them out there and start communicating, if it's not NWMO stuff, but really get into the whole idea about how you manage this, you know, from the town, because I have questions, you know, I have questions about where's your urban growth plan? You know, the housing study that was done, well, that was only related to township study properties, that wasn't related to like, how are you going to attract private businesses? There's like properties in this community that people are sitting on that want to develop it, but they don't know how to. Right, they're asking questions, and I thought, well, that should be really the economic development officer role in doing that, like to go out and start managing that kind of stuff and say like, look, we can help you with these kind of funding spend, or we'll provide some funding towards that, if you can, right? So I think it's that kind of thing that needs to start, that strategy needs to start happening, and I know it probably is, but I'm just saying, from what we see as a community, we don't see it.
Well, don't you think Darren said something very important here tonight? That we probably pay the cheapest taxes in Northern Ontario, this community does,
I don't care.
right? And the reason we do that is because of the NWO money that we've been getting over the last 10 years. That they've been paying for a lot of infrastructure, they've been paying for the fire truck, they've been paying for stuff like that.
But
So you
again,
can't say we haven't benefited. So
No, I'm not saying, I didn't say that you didn't benefit, I'm not the one saying that, so I just wanna be very clear, I'm not saying that you didn't benefit, we did benefit. Right, I know that, but I'm just saying is what people are not seeing is what's going into their pockets.
Well,
Okay.
why,
we are
so,
going.
I need to clear something up. So you guys sat on these boards for 12 years. Did you think the money that you were,
We intended.
okay, did you think the money was actually going to go into your own pockets?
Of course not.
No.
Because that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
We haven't seen anything.
You're saying, especially the seniors, is throw them a little bone, let them realize.
What kind of home, what kind?
Okay.
Not everybody-
We are paying the lowest tax,
Okay, but I think-
haven't you been paying attention?
I think,
No, you haven't been paying attention to the people, you know.
yeah, I think what needs to happen, is you guys have to really know, you have to show this, I'm just gonna finish this explicitly, and I'm kind of saying.
Really?
Explicitly in terms of what the benefits were, like, for example, Silvertop's got $140,000. You know, right, over so many years, that was a direct benefit to the seniors because their hall got renovated, they got new doors.
Does everybody know that?
Well, that's what I'm just saying, it's like, so
Nobody
I
knows
think that's,
anything.
I think it's a communications issue more than anything
I
right
mean,
now, so.
I appreciate everyone coming here today, but our council meetings are regularly not attended. So I mean, we hear that we are being not.
Can't say anything anyways.
Every piece of business goes through our council meetings, right? But then nobody attends our council meetings and then they complain that they don't know what's going on in the.
Even at the council meeting, come on, even at the council meetings, you guys don't even know all the money that you spent, maybe you think you do, maybe you do. But we don't know, at the council meetings, I don't see anything discussed exactly what you spent, like Jeff was saying there since 2020. Like, all that information is not in there, you get little tidbits here and there at one of the meetings. That's not enough information for anybody to say, oh, that's what they're doing for the community.
That's
I
one
don't
of
know.
the challenges right now.
Yes,
Getting caught up
Yeah.
on 5 years worth of
Thank you,
financial stuff.
thank you very much.
Yeah, this is.
This is their meeting.
Month can be, like, I haven't seen a budget in a council package, and I look at every single council package. I have not seen a budget outline for like a quarterly budget,
Yeah.
a monthly
Yeah.
budget, nothing.
For
I like to read
expenditures.
that, I'm the numbers nerd, and I haven't seen it.
And that's because, go back 5, 6, 7 years ago, when the administration that was in power didn't present the numbers properly, and we're trying to clean up the mess.
I'm not looking.
So,
at it.
so you can't have.
It was your turn.
Numbers.
Guys, I wanna.
Yeah, let's get this done.
It was another turn.
So,
Take a deep breath.
so here are the contributions that we're receiving from NWO. We're part of that downward offset for that 400,000 that we're receiving as a result of the end of the multi-year funding agreement is gonna lower the administration. That should be going to the asset management, but we're offsetting an additional cost associated with this to offset some of these costs, right? We have $1 million for hosting regulatory. We have an agreement as part of this, with the NWMO. Part of that money was allocated to make sure that we're living up to our obligations as a result of that. So that might be hiring a consultant to, review large documents that are necessary for us to proceed, right? The hosting support, this is, legal, part of that is $1 million is for a legal reserve, just to make sure that we are, so a small township doesn't have the resources as much as NWMO, so if there's a disagreement about what that hosting agreement is, that money is there set aside, so we're not taking away from the taxpayers to essentially arbitrate with NW. Right. And if and when the regulatory process is done, then that money will come out of reserves and go back into whatever council wishes to do with it, right? We do have a little bit of money for economic development. We're still working on that. It's still in the budget. And
Quite
then-
low.
Well, I mean,
It is quite low, but you considering that you wanna grow the community.
well, we
that's
do,
a
right? But
readiness.
again, it costs money, right?
I
We're
know it
complaining
does.
about taxes not going up, but it costs money to get an economic developer. So that these two arguments don't really, there's no intersection between them, right? So we gotta make a decision what services we want. Do we want an economic development officer? Cause it's gonna cost us this much of money, right? And if it's gonna cost this much money, then it's gonna be, coming out of taxes. Or if it's not coming out of taxes, then it's gonna come out of something else,
Well,
right?
could you not take the project lead position? I mean, certainly when
Well,
I,
that's what that's for.
that's the project lead is the economic development.
Yeah, so there's a certain
15,000,
percentage.
you're not gonna get a consultant that's gonna be.
Well, I mean, it's halfway through the year already, right?
Well, looks like.
Right, it's
I
halfway
see
through the
your
year.
study,
right now.
your study for 240,000 for just one study, another 120 for another one, and I know what they cost, for.
But that has nothing to do with,
Well, it's, part of that was the economic development stuff, so I mean, they're economic development, so I mean. I don't know.
it's halfway through the year, right? It's halfway through the year,
Get somebody that did all the rules.
right? And then we have 150,000 allocated for youth community training. So any money that's not being used for that particular for youth community training is gonna put in reserve at some time. That's when it is gonna be used, whether that is to develop a training center here with the Confederation College, who only knows? Anyways, that money is strictly for youth community training.
So are there services and programs that are attached to those that we can review and see like how, if that has been done, or if the money gets been allocated and then you will afterwards decide on a program and. Like youth community training doesn't mean anything to me. It's like.
There will be a policy, or set of policy.
The reserves bylaw that was passed at the last council meeting has
Specifics in terms of programming, where the training, timing and everything.
each of those.
Yeah, or put a policy of what that money is being used for,
Yeah.
right? Expenditures, so again, the balanced budget, $10.9 million in expenses, it is 18.4 above 2004, but it is down 2.6% from 2023. OPP costs 17% depending on what you're measuring, same with water, same with health related services. Here is all the expenditures based upon, I don't know what it cut off, but based upon, there are certain percentages of the whole. Pay per use services, So water wastewater with a 10% increase proposed, we're still gonna have a 64K deficit, which is gonna come out. This is the real cost, it's gonna come out of taxes, it's a real cost that has to come from somewhere. If it's allocated to the per usage, then it gets per usage, right? If it goes to the property taxes, for instance, people that live on the lake that don't have sanitary, part of their taxes is gonna go to paying for the wastewater deficit that's there, right? I don't think that's fair. I think if you're gonna use the water, you should pay for water. It's my personal opinion. Same with the landfill. We have a 26K deficit with no reserve contributions that is coming out of taxpayer levy, right? So some of these we're gonna be picking away at to try to bring these up.
Did did you say that were you saying that people that have septic fields are going to what?
So we have a $26,000 deficit in our water wastewater. I'm proposing an increase. This deficit is largely at wastewater. Right, because over wastewater, you're only paying $1 something, water, you're paying $3 something. There's a huge deficit as a result of that because it costs just as much to process the water, wastewater as it does to the water. Because it's coming out of taxes, right? The money has to come from somewhere. If it's not pay per use, it's gonna come out of the tax levy.
No, but you're not saying, she's asking people that are in
Yeah.
septic fields, they're not gonna pay for it in
Yes.
sewer.
Yes, he
They
said.
are.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, he said, he
Out of
said
the
right
tax.
now you are because it's coming out of the taxes, but he thinks it should be a usage. So he doesn't think it should come out of anyone who's a septic field. So if you increase the wastewater part of the water bill,
Misunderstood.
Yeah.
then
This-
that way it's a pay for use.
So you're gonna stop it, you're gonna, people
I-
that are on septic are not going to.
They would not see that increase because we don't get charged for it.
That's not what I'm saying, is that what
It's
you're
coming
saying?
out of the pot from taxes.
So are you going to make the people that are, will the people that have septic fields have to pay for it out of their taxes?
This year,
Yes,
unless there's a bylaw that changes it, yes.
and next year,
I don't know. We can move forward with something,
so that he is
But I-
going to be paid for it.
but I think I personally.
Out of our
think-
taxes, not on our water bill.
I
This is
personally,
why he's proposing that 10% increase.
that's why I wanna move to a user fee, right? If you're gonna use that water, you should pay for that
Right.
water. Somebody else shouldn't have to pay for it. Right?
And how long does that take, Tim? I'm asking.
Well, I tried raising the rate 25% earlier this year, that didn't go anywhere. Well,
No.
Surprise, surprise.
yeah, well, I mean, there's consequences to those decisions. But anyways, saying 28K for the landfill, there's deficit there, right? So that's gonna have to come out of taxes. And the planning and zoning, so we've done some moving around, of things, consulting
Here
pricing,
we left the landfill side, why is it,
a deficit.
Yeah.
Because we've allocated the labor from public works workers.
Yeah, but that money still goes over in public works, so that's
But
not
they're
changing.
working, they're
You're
working,
just moving it over.
well, the money is moving over, so
Yeah.
the actual cost for the landfill.
Yeah, but that's not, you still have that money, you were collecting it for public works when you were allocating it under public works. So you're not getting, you don't need extra money for public works.
No, the public works actually.
I
went
mean,
down.
sorry, yeah, okay, so it
Public
should go
works
down
actually-
lots. So
Yeah.
but we still are.
It did.
So I've allocated one, somebody to do the work at the landfill, so that we're actually finding out what the actual costs are for each one of these. They're working on the road, then the work.
Yeah, I understand, I understand what you're doing there, but I just didn't think it was extra money because you already got the money.
No,
for
I
it.
just moved it
Same
from.
employee, that's all.
Yeah. So you'll see the public works went down, right? There are some additional services that we are providing there, like line painting that was missed, we're buying some material in bulk, so we get a cheaper rate. Per ton rather than buying just per truckload as we need it, right? So there's some additional costs, but there was a significant decrease in wages as a result of me allocating those things to the right locations. Recreation, no increase at this point. We're looking at doing this, and then planning and building services, no increase, but we're looking on it.
Just for planning and zoning development, I think you guys maybe need to do a further review, because we just did one up in this about what people are being charged for.
Yeah.
Site plan development, we're way under,
Oh, I know,
you know, compliance letters, we're way under, I could
I know.
never understand why they were $30 when.
I know.
We were, I mean, I used to work in cities where we were paying like $200, $300, people would pay.
Yep.
Right, so I mean, I think that's something that needs to be looked at.
Definitely, I think last-
Significantly increase that to cover the cost of that kind of work that needs to be done, especially from the administration side.
This is well on our radar, definitely, because of that, again, we wanna make it pay per use, right? You know, people that are getting severances should have to pay for getting that severance.
You said that.
People's taxes shouldn't have to subsidize somebody else getting those benefits, right? So we're gonna work on these are all things that we're working on, as soon as I can get this budget passed,
Yeah.
right, then I can move on to something else.
The complaint.
Or some kind of budget, I don't care, I just wanna get this off my plate.
We just wanna make sure we do it right this time, that's all.
Yes.
As right as possible.
Reserve, so, we're withdrawing the 1.5, as we know, we're gonna get reimbursed for that once we get the OPMF money, 773,000 roughly, with the other projects we might add on by the end of the year, just to have $1 million that we can spend, that the government's gonna reimburse. That is for, you know, maintenance items, replacing PCLs, controllers, and hydrants, and brains. One of our lift stations need a new, to keep the breakers. Anyways, that's for that. Then the 310 for Nords, we had to spend it this year, that's why there was sort of a rush to get this done. So it was for Davy Lake, we scoped, the underground infrastructure should be good. The funds are already received, so we have to spend that money, otherwise we have to give it back. And then contributions, we got, per bylaw, I don't have no off the top of my head, it's 2.5% of the revenue. For water wastewater is what you see there. Hosting regulatory, so whatever's not being spent for the regulatory process is being put in reserve, again. It's gonna generate until such time it's no longer needed, and then that money gets freed up at some future date where we can use it at whatever.
I hope we're getting somebody better to do the Davy Lake Road resurfacing than what we've got in the past, because this is terrible. If you walk the streets or the sidewalks, it's horrible. Is the town going to try and fix those cracks?
So,
Wherever it's wrecked, it's
Yes,
terrible,
I agree,
and they did a bad job. Bad.
yes.
And maybe they can go right across to the highway.
So one of the options, one of the options is to, so I'm getting this from Pine to West for now as the main. And then we're getting an option, it's called an option. We're gonna get a cost to do the remaining, and I'm gonna bring that back to council, and then they'll make the decision there is a risk associated with that, because there's more infrastructure along the water line sort of cuts. It's on the north side of between Pine and West. So if there is a line
It
break,
ends up on the waste house.
yeah, but it cuts back down on the other side of it and it goes right underneath the road. So there's a cut and we're not being able to scope the water line, there is a risk there. So, but we'll see what the price, maybe the price, yeah. Yeah, but I'm being a number of years in engineering management and construction management, I know the dirty contractors.
So we're gonna expect it to be done perfectly then, right?
Yes.
No camel humps.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about perfectly, but we'll do our best on material testing. So one of the things is we have to do material testing to make sure that the product is meeting specifications, otherwise it's gonna ravel, it's gonna deteriorate faster because no testing's being done, right? So there is some testing, it costs a little bit more, but it's an insurance program, you make sure that you're getting the product that you're paying for. Right, so, this is my bread and butter, this is what I've been doing for years, so I'm looking forward to actually doing some infrastructure upgrades.
So is there been some discussion, so when you're doing Davy Lake, I'm just asking again from a planner now,
Yeah.
I'm talking, I'm putting my urban planning hat on, and I would talk to you as an engineer and say, have you now decided that, you know, you're gonna repave the whole, you're gonna rip out all the asphalt and right? Or just recover it or whatever you're gonna do, but that's the time where you start assessing the infrastructure in that part. In your housing study, the housing study that you guys just did, you said that maybe there might be potential, I don't wanna get anybody, but there might be the baseball diamond is gonna be. It was identified as a possible subdivision to put housing. So I would think that you would wanna make sure that the infrastructure that's under there can accommodate whatever new development that you're gonna do. So it's always a good idea, like, I mean, I know in, again, larger cities, and like when we were in a residential area, when they ripped out the pavement for the main like road. They also they redid the infrastructure, they redid the pipes, they redid everything else in terms of that too, and that was like, and that subdivision was built in 1982. So that just gives you some idea of how they kind of stage things as they move forward in terms of development. I mean, are you just gonna put lipstick on Davy Lake, you know, to fix it, which is, I agree, it needs to be done. But I'm just wondering if there's other stuff that you just mentioned.
So this, as I mentioned previously, this money has to be spent this year.
Yeah.
So there's no time to do proper planning. So we either spend that money or we lose it.
Yeah.
Right, so we did scope the underground. It is in a condition that we assessed that would last another 50 to 20 years at least. Right, that would be the lifespan of the surface. At which time, we'll have a better plan on what's going on if there's gonna be there. Yeah, but that is my plan, is as we move forward with other upgrades, we'll assess what future developments are gonna be there, get them to determine what kind of entrances they're gonna be needed there. The planning is gonna be done, maybe even with a landscape architect, to make sure it looks nice, depending on what value we wanna start putting back into the community, right? There's, whatever that might be, right? There's a lot of infrastructure on the north side of the highway that needs to be done, but I would like to fix up Pine Street, make it, that's a main corridor, right? But we'll see how things go. We're gonna do our investigations, and if we find that there's underground infrastructure that needs to be replaced, we'll make sure that we're capturing that first, because the necessity is there.
Can we get rid of all the eyesores in town? Like, the apartment building,
Yeah, we're working
the trading homes,
on that. I'm hoping that,
then the dumping fees are gonna go up, cause you're gonna have to dump all that stuff in the garbage.
well, I mean, yeah, I was gonna bring it up too. We're gonna bring a KPMG to discuss. So they've worked with townships on developing a long-term financial strategy, and they've done so with many communities that have gone through similar projects. And this Duberville is one of them. They had to. They are a consulting financial firm. So they worked with a number of, Duberville, for instance, had 2 mines open up, and the township found what their thoughts were about what was gonna happen was not necessarily the case, and they had to make some adjustments. So we're gonna bring actual experts in to give expert opinion on real case scenarios that they've actually worked with townships through to bring out the desired result on some of these strategies that we can put forward. You can look it up, what the long-term financial plan is sort of the technical term that they use. But we're working on moving this forward. It is gonna be available to everyone to watch the presentation as well.
When is that happening? This year?
Oh, yeah, real soon, within the month. Within the month. Here's the variance analysis. CCR is your tax contributions. So obviously taxation is gonna have an amount of cash, because there are no expenses. Administration, for instance, asset management is only 41% of that is revenue based, the rest of that is taxation. 106, so Crossroads is generating 6.7 more than they're contributing, and so on and so forth. There's a variance analysis. You can see that, where is it? Public Works went down So even though, so the expenses went down, right? Same with water utilities, very small, but that's just because of the way that it would, there was billing issues going last year. Catching up with some. Any questions? I should also mention, red is increase in money. And black is decreases in money, so you can see that, say for expenses. You can see that it's red, so that just means our expenses went down.
So all the taxation is what we want to tax the people to pay, right? Even the ones that aren't paying, they're in there. That long in there?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so again, anybody that's not paying taxes is gonna. Within laws that govern us, we're gonna make sure that one way or another, we're gonna get our money. It's not fair that some people pay and some people.
No, I just wondered if it was in the total of
It
it.
is, yes, it is. For the most part, I mean, there are some problematic, but for the most part, people are usually pretty good at paying. The majority, the same with water, same with everything, the majority of people pay. Majority, so.
And those 7 properties that we don't own, but we may own again. Are they gonna be paying all their taxes? Or have they paid their taxes out? I don't know. I mean, that, I think the trading post building, their charges.
I can't.
You can't talk about
I can't talk.
And plus that.
but I can.
Sure.
Well, there's.
I don't think anyone would
there's development
appreciate if we
agreement.
talked about their taxes.
No, there was agreements on it, they have to build within a certain time, and I remember that.
Any.
Yeah.
So this is a budget to actual, the solid line indicates. The budget, the fill is what was spent, so the administration was a little bit more. Same with. Where are we? So you can see roadways, even though I budgeted the correct way, but it was being executed the right way. Right, so. For instance, hosting support. The budget and last year's budget and this year's budget is the same, that line represents this year's budget. We only used up whatever that is, 25, I guess, for percentage price. A little bit over budget on our NTI, but for the most part, other than the additional cost that was associated with the repair of Pine Street that I didn't foresee because I was new here. That was the only additional cost, is why we went a little bit over our last. And. Any questions?
It's my house.
So. Has the pavement marker been purchased already? Cause it looks like we have some nice new.
Yes, so I'm proposing that, the pavement marker will be, it will take some time
Okay.
to get. This is something that I think is gonna cost. We can, you know, I mean, it's,
Did you get somebody to do that? though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I guess my other question is, we're already in June and we're talking about a budget.
yes,
Like, should this be done like maybe, I know you said to stop the 20, you wanna work on something else. I really think you should really start doing the 2026 budget. Right, so you approve it by like January, because you've already spent half of it, right? You're allowed to spend 50% of your, I guess.
so we got approval for 40%.
40%, so
Um,
but it's like, it doesn't make, you already.
Progress, not perfection, right? I mean, last time it was November.
Well, yeah, you already, that's it was 2024, it was November, basically, there was no point in having a budget.
Yeah, I mean, the plan was to get it done completely, but things sort of got in the way. We had some other stuff that happened that we had to focus our attention on. The process sort of got changed up. I wanted, there was a discussion about providing an actual tangible. I was just gonna go in and just say, here's the numbers, make a decision, and I'll make the report that way, but that's not what council wanted. So I mean, more effort in getting a tangible report in place, which is probably gonna be changing. I think next year, it's gonna be done better. We do have to wait for the actuals. And there's been a lot of changes. Normally, you're just gonna add 2 to 3%. right? To all your costs for CPI, because everything goes up in price. And then there's your budget, right? But we're making some big swinging changes and allocating wages and insurance and. So, and we still have to make further changes for next year as we retool our general ledger codes. For the new software, right? So there was quite a bit of work to get where we needed to go. And I think coming years, definitely, there's a deadline, we need to meet it. Like, we gotta definitely do better.
Yeah, it's easy to make a budget when you do it at the end of the year, because you take your actuals and my budget, hey,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, just add 2 or 3% and there you go. So,
well, it has those public engagement sessions that you're supposed to have, right, you know, in the beginning of the year or whatever, like. When do most municipalities have their budgets passed?
last year, Sioux Lookout didn't pass it till July or August, so I mean, it's not unusual.
No, but it shouldn't be the norm.
No, definitely not. Definitely. And
But the federal government hasn't passed the budget.
for several years, I think it's already.
Our books haven't been done since 2021.
Is there any other questions? Now, take your shots at me now.
Hey, Karen?
Yes.
I just wanna know, you went ahead and got the lines painted.
Yes.
But aren't you saying that that's gonna be, dug up in that area?
No.
That area?
No, so you mean on Davy? So we're cutting short.
Oh,
We're cutting short, we're like, so, we're not gonna come into the radius, we're gonna, unless.
you're not gonna go on the way,
Well, it's possible we could.
yeah,
People.
so that's a primary road.
It is,
It's a primary road.
So there's a chance, but I mean,
I'm just wondering why the lines are painted, knowing that you guys.
well, we don't know, that's the thing, we don't know.
No.
We don't know, right? So, but yeah, I mean, it was, the consideration was there, because we're gonna come in the radius. And there's